I'ma say this once. If this is all the fans have, Lil Durk is walking through them doors. Alhamdulillah, subhanallah, alhamdulillah, Allahu Akbar. So here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna just read through this entire thing, and we're gonna skip around a little bit because there's certain things that it just don't really need to be read, like the Ruiz part when we get to it. But this is insane. If y'all can, man, if you want to see the channel grow up and blow up the next big thing, hit that like button and comment your thoughts when they come to you. I don't give a damn when, even if you jump off early. Let's get into it. United States versus Dirk Banks. Defendant Dirk Banks' reply to the government's omnibus opposition to defendant Banks' motion in limine to exclude government's proposed FRE 404B evidence. Hearing November 18th, 2025. So next week, bruh, it's going to get cracking. Make sure y'all got y'all bells on. You do not want to miss none of this stuff. Defendant Dirk Banks buying through his attorneys through Finland. We already know all that crap, so we don't got to worry about that. Government's omnibus opposition to defendant Dirk Banks' motion in limine to exclude proposed Rule 404B evidence. This reply is based on the attached memorandum of points and authorities, as well as other applicable statutory and constitutional law, and any argument and evidence that may be presented at any hearing on this motion. Let's go. The government's opposition repeats ad nauseum that the proposed Rule 404B evidence, which it is now calling inextricably intertwined, is necessary to prove core issues in this trial. The government's claim reveals the weakness of its case in chief without attenuated, unreliable, other act evidence. The government is unable to tell a coherent story. Meaning, bruh, if y'all can't get this, y'all can't even give us a story that even makes sense. That's basically what you're doing. So if y'all like this way of me doing a video, cool. If you want me to pop in and pop out, cool. But I'll do it this way, and then y'all let me know. The likes will determine everything. All right? Or just tell me in the comments. Nah, bro, go back to popping in and popping out. All right, sorry about that. Without attenuated, unreliable, other act evidence, the government is unable to tell a coherent story about the murder that occurred on August 19, 2022, or at least one which inculpates. I don't know what the hell's wrong with me. But y'all know I ain't doing no bagging. No, we ain't doing no, nah, hell nah. Mr. Banks, irrespective of the deficiencies in the government's case, the government's need for the evidence does not exempt it from the rules of evidence. The government hopes that this court will disregard the necessary individualized assessment of each piece of evidence and admit the Rule 404B evidence in bulk as intrinsic evidence, additionally disregarding the safeguards of Rule 403. This count should reject that invitation. Legal standard. Federal courts have admitted other act evidence when it A, constitutes part of the transaction that serves as the basis for the criminal charge, or B, is necessary to permit the prosecutor to offer a coherent and comprehensible story regarding the commission of a crime. United States versus Ricardo Martinez. And basically, it says this exception Rule 404B is most often invoked in cases in which the defendant is charged with being a felon in possession of a firearm. Oh, because Dirk was never caught with no gun, particularly in the context of self-defense claim, ID. But there must be a sufficient contextual or substantive connection between the proffered evidence and the alleged crime to justify exempting the evidence from the strictures of Rule 404B, ID. For example, United States versus Martinez, right? And they say the government used evidence that Ruiz threatened Border Patrol officers as they subdued him after an assault to show that he had the intent to harm the officers. So y'all whooped his ass and then said, yeah, he was going to threaten us before, so that's why we whooped him. The court held that the testimony was necessary to put the illegal conduct into context and to rebut his claims of self-defense, citing United States versus Daly. Even then, evidence is still subject to the balancing test under Rule 403B. The government fails to meaningfully differentiate between the evidence it believes is properly admissible under Rule 404B and the evidence which it believes is intrinsic and thus excluded from Rule 404B analysis. The evidence at issue here is either not intrinsic, does not satisfy the requirement of Rule 404B, or both. The government's proposed other act evidence should be excluded. Evidence of defendant Banks' alleged rivalry with TB. The government misunderstands Mr. Banks' argument that most of the government's proposed evidence does not properly fall within the purview of Rule 404B. Gov. Op. at 6. This is not because the evidence is intrinsic. It is because the evidence is not an other act. The other act that the government seeks to admit to show Mr. Banks' motive is an act that someone else committed. Specifically, Timothy Leaks, that's Lil Tim, who shot and killed Mr. Bennett on November 6, 2020 outside a hookah lounge in Atlanta. If I'm Drew Finland, I'm actually proving that Lil Tim actually did not even kill him, that the bullets that they found in Vine came from a police gun. But neither here nor there. Mr. Banks was not there, or even in the state of Georgia at the time. So there was no act that Mr. Banks committed for the government to use as motive related evidence. Yeah, but they're saying slide for Vaughn in retaliation of what they did to him. So this is a little shaky flaky already right here, but it gets better from what I've seen from other people. Mainly Dirk all day. Gov up at 6. What the government really seeks to admit is a historical fact, perhaps. The fact that Mr. Leaks killed Mr. Bennett after Bennett and TB were involved in a physical altercation, or that Bennett was killed at all. But even Mr. Bennett's death bears little meaningful relevance to this case. Mr. Banks is not alleged to have ordered violence against Mr. Leaks. That's right. That's what y'all gotta do. It's like shoot the shooter, basically. That's what they said. Hey, if they were so gangster and they was ready to kill everybody, why not kill the person who killed King Von? The fact that Mr. Leaks killed Mr. Bennett in 2020 does not bear on Mr. Banks' purported motive in this case, where Mr. Leaks is not a victim. Additionally, and that's crazy because I think I said that in the last video. Anyways, additionally, the government seeks to admit evidence of public pressure on Mr. Banks to slide for Von or avenge the killing of Mr. Bennett. Von, but the pressure to seek revenge for Bennett's death does not show motive in this case because Mr. Banks is not charged with seeking violence against Mr. Bennett's killer. The evidence does not satisfy the requirements of Rule 404B, nor is it inextricably intertwined with the facts of the present case. In May 2021 shooting incident in Blackshear, Georgia, the government suggests that in May 2021 shooting incident in Blackshear, Georgia, where TB was present, perpetrated by persons unknown, is inextricably intertwined with all charges in this case. But it's also direct evidence of the stalking charge, government op-ed 10. The government omits the fact that there is no evidence which shows Mr. Banks or any other co-defendants in this case was involved in the shooting, save for the shaky narrative of one cooperating witness who was facing a potential life sentence. Oh. So, somebody flipped. Somebody flipped on Lil Durk that's either in this case knows Lil Durk and caught our body and basically is like, hey, y'all don't give me a life sentence and I'll give you everybody involved in this. And they're probably saying, I know who killed. Wow. That's how that goes. There's no other way. They had to say, bro, I know exactly who killed Lil Pop and I'll tell you exactly what happened. This person, this person, this person, this person, this person. And Lil Durk is the one who told them to do it. Crazy. Moreover, the 2021 shooting cannot reasonably be taken as inextricably intertwined with the alleged stalking and shooting that occurred on August 19, 2022 in Los Angeles, as the facts, people, and context are entirely dissimilar. And you know what? They're right, because if you had the people who shot the shit out of Quando Rondo and them and then hit a damn thing, you need to go arrest them as well. Like, this should be a bigger case. They're right. The government cites the United States Serang Ninth Circuit 1998 to suggest that prior unsuccessful attempts to kill TB at Mr. Banks' supposed request explain the nature of the conspiratorial relationship that the contours of the alleged murder plot in this case, government op-ed 10, but in Serang, where the defendant was charged with arson, the cooperator's testimony regarding 2 previous failed arson attempts was admitted as inextricably intertwined because it was explained the nature of their conspiratorial relationship and how and why the fire was set in the manner that it was. Specifically, the cooperator's testimony regarding the 2 previous attempts explained why the fire was started in a unique way to avoid fire suppression systems, and with a key given to him by defendant. The testimony showed how, though the 2 failed attempts and conspirators learned how to better avoid the fire suppression system, and simply put, how to more effectively burn a building, ID. The facts of the 2021 shooting incident in Blackshear where TB was present are as follows. A group of men allegedly shot at TB at a gas station in Georgia. The investigation into the shooting was conducted by Georgia Bureau of Investigations, that's the GBI, and they were unable to identify any suspects. Gonna be honest with y'all. They right. This shit shouldn't even be in there because y'all don't know who did what. PW2 is the only source of information for the government regarding any context or participation in this shooting. Further, even PW2 statements are vague regarding the participants in this act, meaning he don't know who was there. He named only 2 individuals, only one of whom could arguably have any affiliation with OTF or Mr. Banks, and some of whom PW2 did not even know who could not identify. No other defendants in this case were alleged to be involved. The only similarity between the 2 acts is that it allegedly occurred at a gas station and TB was present. That's crazy. I didn't even think about that. In 2021, Blackshear shooting incident bears no unique resemblance to and has no meaningful impact on the 2022 shooting of SR in Los Angeles. They are entirely unrelated. The evidence does not satisfy the requirements of 404B, nor is it inextricably intertwined with the facts of the present case. Evidence related to OTF structure and defendant Banks' control over OTF. To establish the structure of OTF, which the government concedes is a legitimate business entity, the government intends to admit 2 text threads and a voice memo addressed in part below. The thread included the message, "I got them hunting you." The government claims that this is nearly unintelligible threat is evidence that Mr. Banks has control over other people who are willing to act on his behalf, even though there is no evidence that threat was ever acted upon by Mr. Banks or any other person over whom he allegedly exercised control. GovOp at 11. The government cannot show that the recipient of that message was ever killed, accosted, or in any way harmed by anyone at the behest of Mr. Banks. Moreover, the recipient of the threat is in no way affiliated with this case. Through this message, the government is attempting to bolster its case with the impermissible inference that Mr. Banks is the type of person who would threaten someone else. In other words, a person with a violent character and propensity for violence. It has no bearing on this case, does not satisfy the requirements of Rule 404B, and would certainly run afoul of Rule 403. Text thread on which Mr. Banks told OTF members he was going to pipe it up. Here, the government cherry picks one comment from a group-long text thread allegedly between Mr. Banks and multiple other people discussing a variety of topics. If this piece of evidence were admitted, the defense would invoke Federal Rules of Evidence 106, the rules of completeness, to argue that the rest of the text thread should also be admitted to provide context. Yeah, because why not? We see this shit happen with Young Thug's trial when the defense tried to say all type of shit, and then the prosecution was like, yeah, there's way more to that story. Yeah, we've seen this in reverse all the time. For completeness, to argue that the rest of the text thread should also be admitted to provide context. FedR Ev 106, where a party introduces all or part of the statement, an adverse party may require the introduction at that time of any other part or any other statement that, in fairness, ought to be considered at the same time. The conversation in its entirety includes a portion where the thread members discuss a phone call that seemingly diffused tension with a rival. One portion of the conversation about a basketball game, and the other portion where a member writes, "Just for today, choose guidance over misguidance and choose humility over pride," to which others respond, "Peace and blessings." Specifically, the text where Mr. Banks allegedly says, "I'm finna pipe it up," is later clarified in another text where he say, "That's all. Letting y'all know I'm finna speak up." If the government believes these texts to be party admissions, then other texts clarifying the meaning of Mr. Banks' alleged words should dispel any belief that "I'm finna pipe it up" meaning anything other than intention to speak up. Additionally, with the inclusion of the greater messages, the relevance of the proposed message is nil, and it should be excluded. The messages fail to satisfy the requirements of Rule 404B and are not inextricably intertwined with any part of this case. Voice memo from unindicted OTF affiliate PW1. The voice memo at issue here is so unreliable that it actually cuts against the government's argument. A thorough review of the voice recording and the text messages surrounding it revealed that the speaker is talking about somebody named Unc, not Mr. Banks, giving money to people and dictating how other people run their business. Because it is so unclear whether the speaker is referring to Mr. Banks or somebody else named Unc, the voice memo cannot reasonably be viewed as material to dispute issue in this case, cannot pass Rule 404B test, and is in no way inextricably intertwined with the facts of this case. Lyrics. See, that's one of the things right there too, right? Let me go right back to this. This is why the freaking feds will overburden and overthrow and literally use the most verbose shit and overpower so many things that it literally tosses in bullshit and try to get it in there. And because your lawyer didn't see it or didn't pay too much attention to it because he has 1,000 other pages that he thinks may be more juicier than shit. Stuff like this gets passed and then you have to fight it out in front of the judge. The judge says, "Well, why didn't you do this shit before trial?" And the judge knows. We don't want to tell the truth. So the judge adds this shit on and then says, "You know what? Nah, it's going to come in." So basically what they're trying to say is, bruh, the jury don't even need to see this because one juror might see that and it's like what's called the bell unrung. If you hear a bell, it is hard to say, "Hey, forget that you heard that bell," but yet the ringing is still in your ear. So hell nah. D, lyrics. The government's position that lyrics are party admissions by Mr. Banks underscores its own inability to grasp the nature of rap music and more broadly art. See GovOp at 16. The government has multiple cooperating witnesses with insider knowledge, cross-country intelligence regarding the murder of SR, and all that led to it. And 20 terabytes of phone data to rely on as evidence in this case. If the government cannot prove its case without the use of Mr. Banks' unreliable, fictitious, and imaginative rap lyrics, then the government has bigger problems than the subject of this motion. Meaning, bruh, them rap lyrics ain't even saying shit. And I said this before. Them lyrics is brought in to paint a picture that they need. They need lyrics that fucking happened 7 months before this bullshit even happened. It's kind of crazy. So, yeah. And then the fact that they're right. If it was all about green lights and all of this shit, why didn't they shoot the shit out of Quando Rondo where green lights was in Georgia? It doesn't, it's not the same. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's not the same exact acts. Anyways, the government states plainly that to the government states plainly that to the extent defendants ascribe meaning to defendants' lyrics that differs from the government's interpretation, that is the purpose of a jury trial, Gov Op at 2, but this ignores the federal rules of evidence and the role of the court in admitting only evidence that comports with rules and notions of justice. The government cannot simply present its own subjective translation of rap lyrics to jurors, throw its hands up and say, it's for the jury to decide. The evidence is still subject to the federal rules of evidence. Yeah, no, because basically, you can't also say at the same time, too, that, hey, bruh, he said he was going to kill somebody years before, and he was going to shoot somebody's car up, and then a year later, somebody's car gets shot up exactly how I say. Nah, that don't work that way, Drew. You know better, but you got to try it anyways. The government cites United States versus Stuckey, 2534. We ain't finna do all that. Where the defendant was charged with shooting someone, wrapping his body in blankets, and then dumping it in the road. In that case, the Sixth Circuit properly admitted rap lyrics where the defendant rapped explicitly about killing someone, wrapping their body up in blankets, and dumping it in the road. For the government to even feign similarity here is disingenuous. This is not a case where Mr. Banks' rap lyrics explicitly depict the crime that he is alleged to have committed. The government previously took that ill-fated approach when it introduced Mr. Banks' lyrics from his feature verse on Wonderful Wayne and Jackie Boy. In his grand jury presentation and in the text of the first superseding indictment itself, the government's fundamental misunderstanding of this category of evidence in their reliance on a fan-edit video, and we pointed this out in the last video, ultimately led to the government going back to the grand jury to attempt to cure the issue and re-indict the case, which they did. So basically, what they're saying is, when you bastards gave the music, you included Quando Rondo crying, screaming at the scene. Bro, that was a fan edit. The hell are you doing? Banks had nothing to do with that. Rather, the government seeks to admit a menagerie of snippets from various songs by Mr. Banks to paint one broader picture of him as a violent person who has his enemies killed. The government suggests that the lyrics show intricate knowledge of the Los Angeles murder that only those involved would likely know, and then points to lyrics in which Mr. Banks is seemingly addressing widespread online comments, which are quite literally known to millions of people. As stated in defendant Banks' motion in limine, if the government were to admit Mr. Banks' rap lyrics as evidence against him, it would undoubtedly result in a mini trial on the reliability of rap lyrics as evidence in a criminal case. This would add significant time to what will already be a lengthy trial, as the government would need to elicit expert testimony authenticating and translating the lyrics for the jurors. Of course, the defense would similarly call in an expert in rap music who would testify to the lyrics themselves, as well as hyperbolic, imaginative, and often fictitious nature of rap music, as well as the sound of engineers and writers who took part in a collaborative process of creating the music, which the government now calls criminal admissions. 2022 Chicago murder. Stephon Max homicide in Chicago on January 27, 2022 has nothing to do with Mr. Banks and is entirely irrelevant to the proceedings. The government suggesting that because the alleged murders mention Mr. Banks in a text message 2 weeks after the commission of the crime somehow inculpates, I don't know why I keep screwing that word up, inculpates Mr. Banks in the Chicago case is misplaced and dangerous. Gov Up at 19. Even more concerning, the government believes that an image posted by the alleged shooter in that case holding money while a Lil Durk song plays in the background is highly probative of defendant Banks' identity as the contractor for the hit on TB. Gov Up at 19. To be clear, the victim in the Chicago case was not TB, nor anyone affiliated with him. And as Mr. Banks is one of the most widely celebrated artists from Chicago, it is commonplace that someone in Chicago would post to social media his song in the background. Moreover, the act at issue here is a text message sent by and received by people who are in no way affiliated with this case. This is not an other act as contemplated under the rules of evidence to be used against Mr. Banks, a distinction the government outright recognized. Except, Drew, they said that the dudes, basically, Lil Durk and them, were basically bragging that the two shooters had killed somebody or killed the person responsible for Lil Durk's brother's death. The government is literally going to argue those points. And the government is going to say he also was around Lil Durk and posted money up after Lil Durk ass did the $1 million worth of game interview. That $1 million worth of game interview where he had money. Then all of a sudden, Lil Buddy had money and he basically flat out asked dude, did you get that from Lil Durk? Basically saying, did you go get paid for a hit on his brother? But what you really should have said is that the state of Illinois said that it has nothing to do with Lil Durk, but you can't because the state of Illinois has that damn thing sealed. And at the same time, Stefan Mack's family is also suing Lil Durk for that. So for you to bring that up, shit, the government is going to eat your ass alive for bringing that up. Conclusion, none of the evidence proposed by the government satisfies the requirements of Rule 404B, nor is it inextricably intertwined with the facts of this case. Rather, the government's attempt to admit irrelevant evidence through Rule 404B or to evade the requirements of Rule 404B altogether by calling the evidence inextricably intertwined is a transparent effort to bolster its case with the impermissible character evidence. The evidence should be excluded from trial in this case. Respectfully submitted, Drew Finley, Marissa Goldberg, Jonathan and Brayman, Chrissy O'Connell, Ceddy Nash, attorneys for Dirk Banks. Dated November 10th, 2025. Yeah. I know I made it sound a little negative because some of y'all, Ceddy Nash, you're on the payroll for Lil Durk. Show your OTF change. Soon as it gets here from T-Move. If that's all they got, bro. And Drew makes a very, very good point. That is really a message to everybody. Chill. I'm reading through it, and Drew is saying, bro, if this all y'all got, we got something for you too. If I'm reading this, right? If I'm reading this as Lil Durk's family, Drew is saying, chill. You mean to tell me y'all about to bring up something where only one person is alleged to have been there? Then y'all bringing up another murder, but y'all don't have any text messages directing this. And what the feds are going to try to argue is, well, all of Chicago knew. So that's why. Really? Okay. So then why hasn't the state done anything about it? Why has the state actually said, you know what, Durk is actually not a witness? I mean, not a party to this crime. So if the people who literally are in the backyard and you're telling me just because you can look over the fence, you have a better purview than I do, so be it. Yeah, Drew is telling y'all, relax. Now, the mother cats, Dee and all them other I don't know shit about nothing they got going on. But as far as Lil Durk goes, you're basically seeing what the damn feds have. Witnesses who can't really say shit. Listen how crazy it's gotten. Drew is going to announce to everybody, here are 5 flights right here. Lil Durk ass always travels this way. If Lil Durk was going to leave, he would have left when the feds took his phones and did not arrest him in Chicago. Wouldn't that make sense? I mean, for such a mastermind, for such a killer, and such a smart individual, why didn't he do it before? Why didn't he do it that way? And you know what? They'd be correct. Everybody who said Lil Durk is going to be found guilty, I want to ask you, what evidence would you need to see? You all will say you need to see text messages, right? They're saying pipe it up don't even mean that. So that's out. The voice memo that you guys are talking about, the feds gave you 3 seconds of that. We give you 30 seconds, and the person that they're actually talking about actually is revealed. The feds are lying. Because they can. This isn't just an assault on Lil Durk. This is assault on rap lyrics. This is assault on gangbanging. This is a perfect damn stage for what you dumbasses do all the time in self-snitching. So the feds know what they're doing. They don't give a damn. What repercussions will happen to the feds when they lose the Lil Durk shit? You know what they're going to say? Well, we got the other ones. Okay. Durk walked away, but We are on his ass now. Now he knows, all you other rappers, be ye very aware. And understand this, Durk will not be the last. He's only one of the first high-profile rappers to get in this bullshit. That's why all of these cats that get on these podcasts, when they have previous RICOs, the phrase is dual sovereignty. Ask any lawyer. Ceddy Nash has a coterie of lawyers that I speak with. Fed and goddamn state. Multiple states. And what we have conversations about range from everything. From lyrics, from people's feelings, from how you should find out certain things, and what you should 100% not believe. The feds are fucking lying. But you know why the feds are going to get away with it? They already told you. Somebody said Lil Durk is a part of this. And they gave them Hansel and Gretel crumbs. They gave them other individuals that their intel happened to be right. So since this is already right, we'll paint the rest of the picture. You already got us the shooters. You already got us the planner. Now you're going to get us the financier? Here, take your 40 years. They said the dude that's telling is already looking at a life sentence. You know what Drew's going to do. Because a lot of these cuts don't know this. But we'll tell the truth. Here's what you don't know, right? That give us one, that shit falls out. You got to give us like 5 or 6. You got to give us so many individuals because he's facing a life sentence. What does he have to gain? FREEDOM? 7-letter words? Freedom. That's what. This is a bullshit case from the start. It's just turning out to be more bullshit. The feds know good and damn well that Durk didn't have shit to do with this. That's why every one of you guys who have text threads and all of this shit, get out of them now. If you have anybody or any homie, any homegirl, anything like that, whatever, get out your text groups right now immediately. If it has nothing to do with our work, fuck personal life, F all of that shit. Get rid of it. Here's what it is. Y'all want to see one of the craziest damn testimonies you ever seen that might have fried YNW Melly? Click right here. Get your popcorn ready. If you have a long night plan, boy, I'm going to get you through your day. If you have an early morning plan, same here. Or if you're just chilling because you don't like watching some of these whack-ass NBA games, I appreciate you. But click right here or click right here for the playlist, and YouTube will do the rest for you. Also, by subscribing, by liking the video, you're automatically entered to win one of these for free. I'll ship it to you. Merry Christmas.